Hey everyone, welcome to Stories of Hope. I'm Christine Hotchkiss, your host. I believe everyone has a story that is unique, just like their fingerprints that put them on the path of their lives, some find purpose. I believe every story can help, heal, educate, inspire, and my one word is to give hope. Not only do our individual stories help one another, our organizations and our communities, such as our nonprofits, are a big resource and a big help to our people in our communities. And that would include this current situation of the 2020 year. And we will get into details because we all know what that entails. Today, my guest is Wendy, and she actually has a nonprofit organization she founded 14 years ago in Apache Junction. Get my little glasses on here so I can see how to introduce. Jose's Closet is a charitable organization serving foster, kinship, and adoptive families. Jose's Closet offers members the items they need for their children in their homes, from clothing, shoes, toys, and games. And the history behind the founding of Jose's Closet is really spectacular. Help me welcome Wendy. Wendy, good morning, Wendy.
Good morning, Christine.
So Jose's Closet is in Apache Junction, Arizona.
Correct.
And it was founded on, tell the story of who Jose is.
Yeah, so Jose is a foster kiddo that we had, and we were starting to sort of dip our toe in the water of doing medical kids. And these are usually kiddos that have situations related to neglect or abuse. Jose's story was a little different in the fact that he had leukemia. And he got into foster care because the hospital he was at, a children's hospital, was not seeing a consistent following of the treatment plan. So when you're in treatment, it's very important you stick to the protocol. And this is how they put you back into remission, cure you, extend your life, whatever it is. And got the call that there was a 9-year-old that was in care, and he had leukemia, but he was in remission. And by the next morning, of course, we took him down to that hospital to check out and find out what my job, what my obligation was, and found out his cancer was actually active. Yeah.
And as we all know, and if you don't know, September is Children Cancer Awareness Month. Is that correct?
Correct.
I actually interviewed Make-A-Wish the other day, and they had a story where a young man, age 7, had leukemia.
Yeah.
So this story touches me just as much as that story that I heard. And I never met Jose. So 14 years ago, how did you find Jose's Closet based on his story?
You know, anytime there's a loss, and you know this personally, I think you either fall into despair or you take action. And I'm just an action person. That's just how I handle grief and loss. And, had a bit of time, had months go by where I was really having a hard time just doing everything, mothering my children. I did not take any foster children during that time, but it really came to me like all ideas do in the middle of the night. And I just sat.
Some people say that they find it in the shower, but yours is in the middle of the night. Okay.
Middle of the night. Yes. Middle of the night just came to me that I had to do something. And the interesting thing about Jose was he was just one of those kids. And I know people say that of people who have passed, but seriously, Christine, he was just a little adult. And we had big conversations like, where do you go when you pass? Sharing things like he didn't want to be buried, that scared him, that the bugs would get him, that did it hurt to pass? Did you know you were passing? Like these big conversations, way too big for a 10-year-old to have. And I just did my best to share my beliefs. And it seemed to give him a lot of hope and comfort that my belief is that you do live on, your spirit lives on. And he literally, I'm not kidding, the night he died said to me, I don't want to be forgotten. I'm a kid, I know, right? Every time I tell this story, like, you're sitting there with a child who's bald and sick and scared. And he just said, you can't let me be forgotten. And he even went on to say, like, I never got married. I never had kids. I never went to college. I didn't have a job. Like, who's going to remember me? And I know that's striking you, that phrase, but it was exactly that. And I just, when that came to mind, you know how you have those deep conversations and it just resonates with you. And I just sat straight up in bed and thought, I have to do something in his honor. And I thought about it and I prayed about it and I thought, oh, I'm going to raise money for pediatric cancer. And then I thought, oh, if I do that, I have to be with a bunch of little kids who have cancer. And I was too weak. I couldn't do it. Like, my heart was so broken. And so then I thought deeper and I talked to my deacon at my church and just shared the struggle I was having, about how angry I was and where was God in all this and how do I live with this, and shared I needed to do something. And he said, Wendy, you have to name it. You have to label it, because that's how things get started. Give it a name. And so I sat down, the church service started after we talked, and I kid you not, I jumped up in the middle of the church and said, I've got it, Jose's Closet. Because you know why this worked? Because the night he came to me, it was dropped off by DCS, Department of Children's and Families. He had on a baggy sweatshirt, boxer shorts, like undies, and shoes that didn't fit. And how embarrassing. He was a 9-year-old boy. And how embarrassing to be with strangers, not feeling, because clothing is protection, right? It's our armor that we put on.
Agreed.
And
an identity to us too. If we find a certain style, it's our identity too. Yeah.
You bet. And how we feel about ourselves and what it says to others. And I jump up in church and I think they all thought I had lost my marbles, and I had a bit, but I knew what it was. I knew that it was providing clothing to children in care. And that was it. I just took off from there. My drive and my passion and my promise to a little 10-year-old that I would do something so no one would ever forget his legacy. And that's where we are all these years later.
That is perfect. I have worked with you through an organization that's in the Arizona area, Chandler area to be exact. And you also you help teens, pregnancies, right?
Right. Anybody that would come into care. So, and our agency services these kiddos until their 22nd birthday. 22. So you're talking, 22. I raised that ceiling realizing that these kiddos have such fractured development. They might be doing their freshman year at 18. They very well don't know how to take care of themselves, don't have a driver's license, don't have a state ID. So realizing that they may need to be home longer than maybe a healthy kiddo does. And so we raised the ceiling, and here's a secret, I really want to raise it to 25. So if we can get the funding, I really want to stay with these kids. Because, you had kids, at 21, 22, they're not fully ready to go out into the world without support. So 25. So that's my next jump, is trying to figure out how to fund those next 3 years.
I find that to be a bit reasonable as well, just because I am around kids. I call them kids because my son is 25. And I told him the other day, I said, you're going to be 50 and you're still going to be my little kid, and he's very mature for his age, but there are a lot of, like you just said, situations where there's not the maturity, or there's not the education, there's not the know-how, the resources. That 25, like you said, 21, 18 really isn't a mature age of having any understanding of what life is all about. We're taught life skills in school. We're taught how to read, write, history. Those aren't even basics if you ask me. The basics was when I went to school, and maybe you as well, where there was home economics, you learned how to cook.
Right.
Even if it was a cake, right? Or you had auto mechanic, where you learned how to change a tire. It surprises me, or doesn't surprise me, depending on who I'm talking to. These skills are the ones that were removed from our schools. And those are the ones that are actually survival getting out there. So, not that the curriculum isn't set right, I just think there's some other things that are missing that don't allow our students, our children, that when they get to that age of what you said, should be graduating from high school at 18 or 17 instead of
Right.
starting freshman year. That's
Right.
yeah,
Right.
no, I
All
get it.
the move, these kiddos. I mean, the statistics say in the state of Arizona, a kid in care has moved 5 times. So you can imagine if you've gone to 5 different schools with 5 different people, your development educationally is not going to be on. So yeah, that's really my next goal, is never to stay stagnant and always keep extending. So that's the goal. I mean, I really want to continue to support these young adults.
Stability is really important. And as you've already mentioned, when it comes to the foster care system, these kids are moved around for whatever reason. It's an
Right.
individual thing, and there is no stability. There's nothing that says,
Correct.
where am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? And what am I supposed to do?
Correct.
Even as an adult, sometimes I ask those questions too.
Sure, sure. And that's why we have to remember is, I've often said is we either are going to pay to incarcerate these children, or we're going to pay to teach these children and support these children. So we're going to support them either way. Which way do we want to spend our money?
Right. Now, we all know the 2020 year has been a change of a lot of different things.
Ugh.
That includes the nonprofit organizations, no matter how small or how large they are, they depend upon donations,
Yes.
whether it's monetary, whether it's cash, it's events.
Yep.
How are you able to, maybe I should ask this, do you have a fundraiser that you were having to put on hold this year that allows you to have that donation?
Oh, goodness sakes, yes.
Yeah.
I can't say that enough. Yeah, directors of nonprofits are broke right now and stressed out and tired, because what we realized is we had to go out of our comfort zone and figure out what do we normally do maybe isn't serving our population right now. So for Jose's Closet, we did a food bank. Now, we did do a food bank for my daughter Emma, who also passed away. She passed away from neglect and abuse that was done in her home of origin. So that's in her birth home, and catastrophic injuries. And she lived with it for 8 years, but then passed August 16th of 2019. So we had done a food bank in Emma's honor at Jose's Closet.
Combination
But
of both.
yeah, combination of both kiddos. I wish I had the time and energy to do her own charity, but the reality is I don't. And so again, just thought about how can I best serve her memory and extend what we started with Jose's and widen it. So during the pandemic, we reached out to the clients we serve and we said, what do you need? What are you struggling with? And across the board, it was food, it was cleaning supplies, it was personal care items, it was formula, baby formula, especially specialized formula.
Yeah.
They just couldn't get it. Everybody was stocking up, and these families did not have access to it. They couldn't go get it. You're talking grandmas and grandparents that were in the high-risk category that couldn't go out shopping. You're talking about people who got laid off from their jobs, so financial devastation. So immediately we raised $6,000, literally, and that was just picking up the phone, of just calling friends and family and people we go to church with and past benefactors, and said, we need financial support and we need food. And quickly, I mean, within 3 days, we had a ton of food. And again, we were asking for, normally we serve kids, so we're asking for, Life cereal and ramen and juice boxes. And this time we said, we need food. We need canned chicken. We need this formula. We need diapers. We couldn't find diapers anywhere. It was insane. And so we collected those resources, and I ended up taking a week off, thinking very naively that this was going to be done in a week or two and life would go back.
I think most of us were.
Right? I'm an optimist.
Me too.
But it didn't. So we did 5 months of weekly food support, and we weighed the boxes we gave out just to quantify it for our charity. And every box was 40 pounds. And we did that. So we served 1,000 children and their families for 5 months weekly.
Wow, good for
So
you.
yeah, it was crazy hard, but we did it, and we ended last Saturday was our last
Oh,
giveaway.
wow. That's so great. Do you
Yeah,
typically have a schedule where people can only come only
correct.
you do have a certain amount of time or not amount of time, what am I saying? Visits that they can actually come in a
Right.
lifetime, in a year? I'm not sure what is it.
In a year. So our families can come once a month, and we welcome the children coming, and the shop is kids running up and down the hall and parents getting clothes and shoes and backpacks and personal care items and feminine hygiene and diapers and books and graphing calculators and the whole gambit. But now we have to shop for those families. And remember, we're an all volunteer run organization. So we have to shop for the family. So the family submits a form, has 8 kids. So they need tap shoes for this kiddo. They need clothing for this kiddo. They need a backpack and crayons. We now have to go into the shop and we have to pull those items. We bag them and then we put them outside the door Saturday morning, 9 to noon. So we're not back to normal, but we never stop serving our clients.
As hard as it is staying afloat in this time of
Ugh.
keep seeing the word, hearing the word, uncertainty. It,
Yes.
yeah, but it's good to know that there are organizations like yours and many others that are there still for the community where people don't even realize these resources are available. Either one of two things is going to happen. Either these resources end up going under, like some of the businesses we've known to have gone under, or they're
Correct.
overwhelmed because they can't keep up and they find a way, like you just said that you did.
Right.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Should anyone want to either donate or volunteer when you have stuff come about, where can you be found?
Josescloset.org is our website, and there's a link directly on there. Also, a little well-kept secret, my personal cell phone is on there. Every client I serve has my personal cell phone, and it rings incessantly, but I really wanted a way to be able to be available for children, for families, for grandparents raising their grandchildren, anybody that had a need of just a personal connection of how can I help you. So a lot of the calls I was getting is my kiddo's getting sad. You and I have talked about this, how when children are disconnected from their world, how depression and anxiety, and remember, we're servicing kids who had food scarcity. So we saw a huge uprising in children hoarding food. So we had families call, say, Wendy, how do we handle this? How do we handle this kiddo who's been with me for a year? All of a sudden, under his bed are candy wrappers and ramen noodle bags and peaches and all this because he's scared, because adults are saying we can't find such and such at the grocery store. We couldn't get your favorite fill in the blank. And so we made videos kids could watch. And we showed them, look, guys, look at what Jose's has. We've still got your ramen. We still have Life cereal. We wanted kids to have a sense that it was accessible and they could still get it. And the language we were using, we talked to our families about don't say running out. Don't say can't find, that this was really trauma triggering these kids.
Absolutely. And as you already know this too, and I don't have any school-age children, the schools were sometimes, if not most of the time, the food source for those kids when they went, on a daily
Right,
basis.
and that's right. Foster kiddos automatically get free lunches and free breakfast. That's 2 meals a day. And the state of Arizona actually says for children to go home to families of origin, they only have to have 2 meals a day. So it is very common that those 2 meals served by the schools is the only meals that they will get. Backpacks, schools send home backpacks with Title I schools that the kids take home on the weekends. That was shut down. It was a time where families in America were hungry. And it reminded me why we do what we do, why it is so important to create these resources. I have a grandmother I service that her daughter passed, and she is raising 3 grandchildren, and she's battling breast cancer. Literally, what I was giving her was feeding her family. When you think about that, I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? that if we don't box this food up, these children and this grandmother battling cancer, they're not eating.
It's tough. Just because we don't know that it's that there doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?
Right. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
My last question I love to ask everyone is, what message would you like to leave to share with everyone based on either your journey, what you do in the community, or just about life in general?
That's hard.
I know, it's like a whole bunch of stuff.
I should have got a cheat sheet for that. I feel like because of what's happened, and now we know the world has changed probably forever, because that's now in our hearts and our minds, don't let fear rule what you're doing. Really make sure that you're taking care of your family, but do a little more. Have a little more grace. And do a little more. You don't have to worry that there's not going to be people in the community that are going to pick you up and sustain you if you are the person in need. But it also talks to the obligation, if you have enough, to make sure you are on the giving side. So for families that are in that position, are getting full bellies and shoes on their feet and puzzles to do. So make sure that you're kind of checking yourself and asking, which camp are we in? If you're in need, ask. It's out there. Christine, do your families know, do your people know that in the state of Arizona, if you get your phone and press 211, that it'll give you a list of resources in the county you live in? So
I'm aware of that, yes, but I don't know that they are. So they, in Arizona only, you were stating they can press 211 and then get resources in the community of what they're what's available. Oh, that's wonderful to know.
Right. So if you're one of the families we would service, please reach out to us. And we have a Facebook page. It's Jose Closet Organization. Please message me. Let me know how we can serve you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing the journey of how Jose's Closet came about, as well as Emma, who spoke briefly about her and how they're both being remembered. And yes, you caught me because I'm very sensitive to children and I'm very sensitive to life. I live life to the fullest as best as I can. And I appreciate people like you who are doing what you're doing and making a difference in our communities. So thank you for being my guest today and sharing the information you have to provide for our community here in Arizona, Apache Junction to be exact.
Correct. But we'll serve families all over the state of Arizona. So
perfect. That's good to know too. All right.
Yeah.
To my listeners and my viewers, whichever you are seeing this, if you have a story that you feel needs to be heard to help heal, inspire, educate, or to give hope. Hope is so needed right now on every life that is walking. Email me to the address of Christine at storiesofhope.com, and that's stories with a Y. And if you have an organization such as Wendy's, with Jose's Closet in your community that you want to have acknowledgement to let people know that they're out there in their communities as a resource, again, email me to the address of Christine at storiesofhope.com. Until next time, everyone, I wish you well, and you take care.